located in the region known as Sumer, which is often regarded as one of the earliest urban civilizations in history. The city was surrounded by a large wall, measuring about 9 kilometers (5.6 miles) in circumference, with defense towers and gates. Uruk was a hub of trade and commerce, with merchants traveling from distant lands to exchange goods and ideas. The city had a complex social structure, with a ruling elite class, priests, and a large population of commoners. Uruk is also famous for being the birthplace of writing. The earliest known form of writing, called cuneiform, was developed and used in Uruk. The city was home to many important cultural and religious institutions, including the famous temple complexes dedicated to various gods and goddesses. 2. Eridu. Eridu is believed to be one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with a history spanning over 5,000 years. The city was located in the southernmost part of Mesopotamia, near the Persian Gulf. Eridu was known for its advanced agricultural practices, including the use of irrigation systems to cultivate crops in the arid region. The city had a significant influence on the development of Sumerian culture and religion. It was believed to be the place where civilization began and where the gods first created humans. Eridu was also associated with the legendary figure of Enki, the god of freshwater and wisdom. The temple dedicated to Enki was a prominent religious center in the city. 3. Ur was a thriving city during the Sumerian period and was the capital of the powerful state of Ur-3. The city was strategically located near the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, making it an important center for trade and transportation. Ur was known for its monumental architecture, including the Great Ziggurat, which was a massive stepped pyramid dedicated to the moon god Nana. The city was a center of learning and cultural exchange, with scribes and scholars producing significant literary and historical works. Ur had a well-organized system of governance, with a centralized authority and a bureaucracy that managed the affairs of the city-state. These cities played pivotal roles in shaping the history and civilization of ancient Mesopotamia, leaving behind a rich legacy of architectural marvels, cultural achievements, and technological advancements.
Okay, you see how I had to ask certain questions to get closer to the truth. That's how you have to do. You have to do your research, but you can't just take the first answers. You have to guide your research to the answers you want. Hold on. Next, I wanted to know the Kemetic correlation to these cities.
The Kemetic civilization, also known as ancient Egypt, had a geographical and cultural correlation with the cities of Uruk, Eridu, and Ur. Although these cities were part of the Mesopotamian region, there were interactions and influences between Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. 1. Uruk and Kemetic civilization. Uruk, located in modern-day Iraq, was a prominent city in ancient Mesopotamia, while ancient Egypt was situated along the Nile River in northeastern Africa. While there is no direct evidence of a significant correlation between Uruk and ancient Egypt, it is believed that there were trade connections and cultural exchanges between the two regions. The Mesopotamian civilization had contact with various neighboring cultures, including ancient Egypt, through trade routes and diplomatic relations. This could have led to the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices. 2. Eridu and Kemetic civilization. Eridu, one of the oldest cities in Mesopotamia, was located in southern Mesopotamia, while ancient Egypt was situated far to the west along the Nile River. The cultural correlation between Eridu and ancient Egypt is not well documented, but it is possible that there were indirect influences or interactions between the two regions. Both Eridu and ancient Egypt relied on advanced agricultural practices, such as irrigation systems, to sustain their civilizations in arid environments. This commonality may have contributed to the sharing of knowledge and techniques related to agriculture. 3. Ur and Kemetic civilization. Ur, a prominent city in ancient Mesopotamia, was located in present-day Iraq, while ancient Egypt was situated along the Nile River in northeastern Africa. There is evidence of trade and cultural interactions between Ur and ancient Egypt during the Bronze Age. Egyptian artifacts, such as pottery and jewelry, have been discovered in the ruins of Ur, suggesting a connection between the two civilizations. The city of Ur was part of the trade networks that extended across the Near East, which could have facilitated contact and cultural exchanges with ancient Egypt. Both Ur and ancient Egypt had well-developed religious systems and built impressive structures to honor their gods. This shared focus on religion and monumental architecture may have influenced each other's architectural styles and religious practices. Overall, while the direct correlation between the cities of Uruk, Eridu, and ancient Egypt is not extensively documented, it is likely that there were some interactions and influences between the Mesopotamian and Kemetic civilizations through trade, cultural exchanges, and shared practices.
What's the difference between Kemetic and ancient Egyptian? That's what I want to know.
The terms Kemetic and ancient Egyptian are often used interchangeably to refer to the civilization that thrived along the Nile River in northeastern Africa. However, there is a slight distinction between the two terms. 1. Kemetic. The term Kemetic is derived from Kemet, which means black land in the ancient Egyptian language. It was used by the ancient Egyptians to refer to their own land, symbolizing the fertile black soil along the Nile River. In modern usage, Kemetic is sometimes used to emphasize the cultural and spiritual aspects of ancient Egypt. It is associated with the religious and philosophical beliefs of the ancient Egyptians, particularly the worship of numerous gods and goddesses and the practice of rituals and ceremonies. Kemetic spirituality focuses on the concept of Ma'at, which represents the divine order, balance, and harmony in the universe. It also encompasses the worship of deities such as Ra, Osiris, Isis, and Horus, among others. 2. Ancient Egyptian. The term, ancient Egyptian, refers to the historical period and civilization that existed in the Nile Valley from around 3100 BCE to 332 BCE. Ancient Egyptian civilization was characterized by its advanced culture, monumental architecture, hieroglyphic writing system, and complex social and political structures.
They were great.
It encompassed various dynasties, pharaohs, and periods such as the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. The ancient Egyptians excelled in various fields, including art, architecture, astronomy, medicine, agriculture, and engineering. They built magnificent structures such as the Great Pyramids of Giza and developed a complex religious and funerary belief system. In summary, Kemetic is often used to refer to the spiritual and cultural aspects of ancient Egypt, while ancient Egyptian refers to the historical civilization itself. Both terms, however, ultimately refer to the same civilization that thrived along the Nile River in northeastern Africa.
Okay. I wanted to demonstrate how great that civilization was. And the point is, what happened? What happened to them? How did they get conquered by the Europeans? Okay, so we're getting closer to the answer because she's starting to tell a little truth now.
Certainly. Here are some additional details about Kemetic and ancient Egyptian civilization. 1. Kemetic spirituality. Kemetic spirituality is a modern-day revival of the religious and philosophical beliefs of ancient Egypt. It emphasizes the worship of a pantheon of
630,000 individuals by empowering them to experience 20/20 vision, introducing prima focus adjustable glasses, the most lightweight, aesthetically pleasing, and
connect with the divine through rituals, meditation, and the study of ancient texts and teachings. Ma'at, the concept of divine order, balance, and
durable
truth,
glasses.
is central principle in Kemetic spirituality. It
Those are footsteps.
2. Ancient Egyptian civilization. Ancient Egypt was one of the earliest and longest-lasting civilizations in human history, lasting for over 3,000 years. The civilization was the Nile River, which provided fertile land for agriculture and facilitated trade and transportation. The society was highly hierarchical, with the pharaoh at the top as the political and religious leader. Pharaohs were believed to be divine rulers, embodying the gods on earth. The ancient Egyptians were skilled in various fields. They developed advanced techniques in agriculture, irrigation, and architecture, as seen in the construction of monumental structures like the pyramids, temples, and tombs. Hieroglyphs, a system of writing using pictorial symbols, were used for communication and recorded important events, religious beliefs, and historical accounts. The ancient Egyptians had a complex religious and funerary belief system. They believed in an afterlife and undertook elaborate burial practices, including mummification, to preserve the body for the journey to the afterlife. These are just a few highlights of Kemetic spirituality and ancient Egyptian civilization. The rich history and cultural legacy of ancient Egypt continue to fascinate and inspire people around the world.
Yep, they were great. So, oh God, man, I gotta find out what happened. I lost it now. Oh God. Hold up.
1. Kemetic cosmology. Kemetic spirituality views the universe as a vast and interconnected web of energy and consciousness. It recognizes the existence of multiple dimensions, with the physical world being just one aspect of reality. The ancient Egyptians believed in the existence of the duat, an underworld where souls would journey after death and face judgment by the gods. 2. Egyptian gods and goddesses. The ancient Egyptian pantheon consisted of numerous gods and goddesses, each with their own unique characteristics and domains. Some well-known deities include Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, Hathor, goddess of love and joy, Anubis, god of the dead and embalming, and Bastet, goddess of home and protection. Many gods and goddesses were associated with natural elements such as the sun, moon, and Nile River, as well as specific animals and symbols. 3. Ancient Egyptian achievements. Ancient Egypt made significant contributions to various fields, including medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. They developed a sophisticated system of medical knowledge and practices, using herbs, surgery, and magical rituals.
Remember how great in
the
advance
Egyptians were skilled
they
mathematicians, using a decimal
Remember
system
that.
and developing techniques for measurement, geometry, and solving equations. Their knowledge of astronomy allowed them to create accurate calendars and make observations of celestial events. 4. Daily life in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian society was highly structured and hierarchical, with the pharaoh at the top, followed by the nobility, priests, scribes, and commoners. Agriculture was the primary occupation, with the majority of the population involved in farming and working the land. The Egyptians had a rich cultural and artistic heritage, with elaborate tomb paintings, sculptures, and jewelry showcasing their craftsmanship and artistic skills. They enjoyed various forms of entertainment, including music, dance, board games, and sporting events. These are just a few more fascinating aspects of Kemetic spirituality and ancient Egyptian civilization. The ancient Egyptians left behind a legacy of remarkable achievements and a unique worldview that continues to captivate people to this day.
Okay, so I want to know about the afterlife journey, the Kemetic afterlife journey, as it is correlating to how it is in biblical terms, the afterlife, from the biblical point of view and from the Kemetic point of view. I'm talking about the afterlife. Let's see how she describes that.
In Kemetic spirituality and ancient Egyptian beliefs, the journey to the afterlife was an important aspect of their religious practices. Here is a description of the afterlife journey according to ancient Egyptian beliefs. 1. Death and preparations. When an individual passed away, their body was prepared for burial through a process called embalming. This involved removing the internal organs, preserving the body with natron, a type of salt, and wrapping it in linen bandages. The body was then placed in a coffin or tomb, along with items and offerings believed to be necessary for the afterlife journey. 2. Entering the duat. The duat was the realm of the dead in ancient Egyptian mythology. It was a complex and mysterious underworld that the deceased had to navigate to reach the afterlife. The journey to the duat was believed to be facilitated by the god Anubis, who guided the soul of the deceased through the various challenges and obstacles they encountered. 3. Judgment of the heart. In the duat, the deceased would face judgment by the gods, specifically by the god Osiris, who presided over the afterlife. The heart of the deceased was weighed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, it meant that the person had led a virtuous and righteous life. If the heart was heavier than the feather, it indicated that the person had committed sins or wrongdoing in their lifetime. In this case, the heart would be devoured by a monster, and the individual would cease to exist. 4. Achieving eternal life. If the deceased passed the judgment of the heart and was deemed worthy, they would be granted eternal life in the afterlife. The individual would be reunited with loved ones who had passed away before them and would reside in the field of reeds, a paradise-like realm where they could enjoy the pleasures of the afterlife. To ensure a comfortable afterlife, the deceased were buried with various possessions and offerings, including food, furniture, and personal belongings. It is important to note that the afterlife journey and beliefs surrounding it varied among different periods of ancient Egyptian history and social classes. However, the general concept of the duat, judgment of the heart, and the pursuit of eternal life were prominent in ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife.
I wanted to know, were the ancient Egyptians Kemetic? Because she kept trying to make them seem like two different entities, but they're the same. So let's see if she already told you.
Yes. Ancient Egyptians practiced a form of spirituality known as Kemeticism. Kemeticism is the modern term used to describe the religious beliefs and practices of ancient Egypt, which centered around the worship of a pantheon of gods and goddesses. The term, Kemetic, comes from the ancient Egyptian word, Kemet, meaning, the black land, which referred to the fertile Nile River Valley. Kemeticism was a complex and rich religious tradition that evolved over thousands of years, with different gods and goddesses gaining prominence during different periods.
If you go back,
the ancient Egyptians believed in the existence of multiple deities who controlled various aspects of life, such as the sun, the Nile River, fertility, and the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians built elaborate temples and performed rituals to honor and communicate with the gods. They believed that maintaining a harmonious relationship with the gods was crucial for the well-being of individuals, society, and the entire cosmos. The pharaoh, as the earthly representative of the gods, played a central role in religious ceremonies and was believed to have a direct connection with the divine. Kemeticism also involved the belief in an afterlife and the journey of the soul beyond death. The ancient Egyptians believed in the existence of the soul or spirit, which they referred to as the Ka and the Ba. They believed that the soul continued to exist after death and could live on in the afterlife if certain rituals and preparations were carried out. Overall, Kemeticism was a fundamental aspect of ancient Egyptian culture and played a significant role in shaping their worldview, social structure, and daily lives. Today, there is a growing interest in reviving and practicing Kemetic spirituality, as people seek to reconnect with the ancient Egyptian religious traditions.
I want to know more about the Kemetic afterlife, because it's different from the biblical one.
In ancient Egyptian belief, the afterlife was a central aspect of Kemetic spirituality. The ancient Egyptians had a complex and detailed understanding of the afterlife, which they believed was a continuation of earthly existence. Here are some more elaborate details about the Kemetic afterlife. 1. Duat. The afterlife realm in Kemetic belief was known as the Duat. It was believed to be a mysterious and complex realm that the deceased had to navigate in order to reach their final destination. The Duat was depicted as a series of interconnected realms or levels, each associated with different challenges and trials. 2. Judgment of the soul. Upon death, the soul of the deceased would undergo a judgment process known as the weighing of the heart. In this ritual, the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, it meant that the person had led a virtuous life and would be granted access to the afterlife. However, if the heart was heavier, it indicated a life filled with wrongdoing, and the soul would face punishment or non-existence. 3. The Field of Reeds. The ideal destination in the afterlife was a place called the Field of Reeds, a paradise-like realm where the deceased could enjoy eternal life. It was believed to be a lush and fertile land, similar to the earthly Nile River Valley. In the Field of Reeds, the deceased would engage in activities similar to their earthly life, such as farming, fishing, and enjoying the company of loved ones. 4. Rituals and offerings. To ensure a successful transition to the afterlife, the ancient Egyptians performed various rituals and made offerings to the deceased. These rituals included the construction of elaborate tombs and burial chambers, the provision of food and drink for the journey, and the recitation of prayers and spells. The belief was that these offerings would sustain the soul in the afterlife and provide them with the necessary provisions and protection. 5. Osiris in the afterlife. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, played a crucial role in Kemetic belief. He was seen as the ruler of the Duat and the judge of the deceased souls. Osiris was believed to have experienced death and resurrection, making him the ideal guide for the deceased in their journey through the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed that by emulating Osiris and living a righteous life, they could ensure a favorable judgment in the afterlife. These are just a few of the more elaborate details about the Kemetic afterlife. The ancient Egyptians held a deep reverence for the afterlife and invested significant resources and effort into preparing for the journey beyond death. The belief in the afterlife provided comfort, meaning, and purpose to their lives, and it continues to fascinate and inspire people to this day.
So the Bible made, and the Europeans made up their own version of heaven and the afterlife. But that was the Kemetic one, which was way before, and paints a very different picture.
Certainly. Here are some additional details about the Kemetic afterlife. 6. Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead, also known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day, was a collection of spells, prayers, and instructions that was placed in tombs to assist the deceased in their journey through the afterlife. It contained a variety of spells and rituals aimed at protecting the soul, guiding it through the duat, and ensuring a successful transition to the field of reeds.
All this information
7.
has been
Ka and
hidden.
Ba. The ancient Egyptians believed that every person had two essential components, the Ka and the Ba. The Ka represented the life force or spiritual essence of an individual, while the Ba was the personality or individuality. After death, it was believed that the Ka and Ba would separate, and the Ba would continue to exist in the afterlife while the Ka remained connected to the physical body. 8. Mummification. Mummification was a vital process in preparing the deceased for the afterlife. It involved the preservation of the body through various embalming techniques to prevent decay. The belief was that the soul would eventually reunite with the body, and therefore, it needed to be preserved for that purpose. Mummification was a complex and lengthy process, involving the removal of internal organs, drying the body with natron, and wrapping it in linen bandages. 9. Anubis and Ma'at. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, was closely associated with the afterlife. He was considered the guardian and protector of the deceased during their journey through the duat. Anubis played a crucial role in the mummification process and was often depicted weighing the heart of the deceased in the judgment process. Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice, was also an essential figure in the afterlife. Her feather was used to determine the righteousness of the deceased during the judgment of the soul. 10. Eternal life. The concept of eternal life was central to Kemetic belief. The ancient Egyptians believed that in the afterlife, the soul would continue to exist indefinitely. Achieving eternal life was a primary goal, and it was believed that by living a righteous and virtuous life, one could ensure a favorable judgment and enjoy eternal bliss in the field of reeds. The Kemetic afterlife was a complex and multifaceted belief system that incorporated various gods, rituals, and beliefs. It provided a framework for understanding the journey of the soul after death and offered hope for a continuation of existence beyond the earthly realm. The ancient Egyptians' profound beliefs and practices surrounding the afterlife continue to be a source of fascination and exploration for scholars and enthusiasts.
Okay, I want to know what happened when someone immediately died in Kemetic terms. I want to know about the journey during the afterlife. What happened? Because I'm trying to see the difference between Revelation and the biblical view of the afterlife as opposed to the Kemetic view of the afterlife. Okay, because you already know the Christian one. So now we're going to learn from the first civilization, the Kemetic one.
In Kemetic belief, the immediate process that occurred after someone died involved the separation of the Ka and Ba, the two essential components of an individual. The Ka represented the life force or spiritual essence, while the Ba was the personality or individuality. When a person died, it was believed that their Ka and Ba would separate from the physical body. The Ka, which was associated with the life force, would remain connected to the body, while the Ba, representing the individuality, would begin its journey through the afterlife. After death, the Ba would embark on a journey through the duat, the realm of the dead. The duat was believed to be a complex and perilous realm, filled with various challenges and obstacles that the Ba had to overcome. During this journey, the Ba would encounter different gods and entities, each with their own role and significance. One of the crucial figures encountered during this journey was Anubis, the jackal-headed god associated with mummification and the afterlife. Anubis would guide and protect the Ba on its journey through the duat, ensuring its safe passage and guarding it against any dangers. The Ba would also come across other deities and entities associated with the afterlife, such as Osiris, the god of the underworld, and Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. Osiris was believed to preside over the judgment of the deceased, while Ma'at's feather of truth was used to weigh the heart of the deceased in the judgment process. The judgment of the soul was a significant aspect of the afterlife journey in Kemetic belief. It was believed that the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, representing truth and righteousness. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, it meant that the individual had lived a virtuous and righteous life. In this case, the Ba would be allowed to continue its journey to the field of reeds, a paradise-like realm where the righteous would enjoy eternal bliss. However, if the heart was found to be heavier than the feather, it indicated that the individual had committed sins or transgressions during their lifetime. In this case, the Ba would face punishment or annihilation, depending on the severity of their actions. Overall, the journey of the Ba through the afterlife in Kemetic belief was a complex and challenging process. It involved encounters with various gods, judgment of the soul, and the ultimate goal of reaching the field of reeds for eternal life and bliss. The specific details and rituals associated with this journey varied over time and region within ancient Egypt, but the underlying belief in the continuation of the soul and the importance of righteous living remained constant.
Okay, want to know more about the Kemetic version of heaven, which was called the Field of Reeds. Let's learn more about that, the heaven and the afterlife.
The field of reeds also...
Oh shit. Hold on for a second. I fucked up again. Okay, more about the Field of Reeds, the Kemetic version of heaven.
The field of reeds, also known as Aru or the field of offerings, was the heavenly paradise in ancient Egyptian mythology. It was believed to be a lush and fertile land, similar to the earthly Nile Valley, where the blessed souls would reside after passing the judgment of the weighing of the heart. Here are some key details about the field of reeds. 1. Concept of eternal bliss. The field of reeds was considered the ideal afterlife destination for the righteous and virtuous souls. It was a place of eternal bliss, peace, and abundance. 2. Resemblance to Egypt. The field of reeds was described as a mirror image of Egypt, with beautiful landscapes, fertile fields, and flowing water. It was believed to have everything a person would need for a comfortable and joyful afterlife. 3. Abundance and prosperity. The land of the field of reeds was thought to be abundant in crops, fruits, and livestock. The souls residing there would enjoy a life of plenty, with access to all the necessities and luxuries they desired. 4. Reunion with loved ones. The field of reeds was not just a paradise of material wealth but also a place for reunions. It was believed that the deceased would be reunited with their deceased loved ones, friends, and ancestors, creating a sense of eternal connection and joy. 5. Personal responsibilities. Despite the idyllic nature of the field of reeds, the souls residing there were not thought to be idle. It was believed that they would continue to engage in activities and pursue their personal interests, just as they did in their earthly lives. 6. Connection to the Nile. The Nile River held immense significance in ancient Egyptian culture, and its importance extended to the concept of the field of reeds. It was believed that the waters of the Nile flowed through the field of reeds, providing nourishment and sustaining its fertility. 7. Ma'at's influence. The principles of Ma'at, including truth, justice, and moral conduct, were believed to govern the field of reeds. Souls who had lived in accordance with Ma'at's teachings were granted access to this paradise as a reward for their virtuous lives. 8. Eternal life. The souls residing in the field of reeds were granted eternal life. They would not experience pain, suffering, or the hardships of the mortal world. Instead, they would exist in a state of eternal happiness and fulfillment. 9. Hieroglyphic depictions. The field of reeds is often depicted in ancient Egyptian funerary art and hieroglyphs. These depictions show scenes of agricultural activities, abundant harvests, and people engaging in various leisurely pursuits. 10. Symbolic significance. The field of reeds served as a symbol of hope and aspiration for the ancient Egyptians. It provided comfort and reassurance that a righteous life would be rewarded in the afterlife, reinforcing the importance of moral conduct and adherence to Ma'at's principles. The field of reeds was a central element in ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. It represented the ultimate reward for a virtuous life and was a source of solace and inspiration for the living.
I want to know more about those reunions with, like, the ancestors.
In the belief system of ancient Egypt, the reunions in the field of reeds were an important aspect of the afterlife. Here is more information about the reunions that were believed to take place in this heavenly paradise. 1. Reuniting with loved ones. The souls who reached the field of reeds were believed to be reunited with their deceased loved ones, including family members, friends, and ancestors. This reunion was seen as an opportunity to be together again and continue their relationships in the afterlife. 2. Eternal companionship. The reunions in the field of reeds were not temporary but eternal. It was believed that once reunited, the souls would remain together forever, sharing their eternal existence in the paradise. This idea provided comfort and solace to the living, knowing that their bonds with loved ones would continue beyond death. 3. Maintaining social connections. The reunions in the field of reeds were not limited to immediate family members. It was believed that souls would also have the opportunity to reconnect with friends and acquaintances from their earthly life. This allowed for the continuation of social connections and the formation of new relationships. 4. Collective joy and happiness. The reunions in the field of reeds were associated with immense joy and happiness. The souls would celebrate their reunion, expressing their love and affection for one another. This collective joy was considered one of the greatest rewards of the afterlife. 5. Sharing knowledge and wisdom. The reunions in the field of reeds were not only about emotional connections but also intellectual and spiritual growth. It was believed that the souls would engage in conversations, sharing knowledge, wisdom, and experiences with one another. This exchange of ideas was seen as a means of personal and collective development. 6. Continuing family lineage. The reunions in the field of reeds also had a deeper significance in terms of family lineage. It was believed that the souls would be able to meet their ancestors and future generations, ensuring the continuity of their family lineage and maintaining a sense of connection with their roots. 7. Support and encouragement. The reunions in the field of reeds provided a support system for the souls. They could find comfort, encouragement, and guidance from their loved ones. This sense of support was believed to contribute to the overall well-being and happiness of the souls in the afterlife. 8. Unity and harmony. The reunions in the field of reeds fostered a sense of unity and harmony among the souls. It was believed that conflicts and disagreements from the earthly life would be resolved, and the souls would exist in a state of perfect harmony and understanding. The belief in reunions in the field of reeds offered a sense of hope and reassurance to the ancient Egyptians. It emphasized the importance of maintaining strong relationships and connections with loved ones during their earthly lives, with the promise of eternal togetherness in the afterlife.
I want to know, were they in the same bodies?
In the ancient Egyptian belief system, the reunions in the field of reeds did not involve the souls inhabiting their earthly bodies. Instead, it was believed that the souls would exist in a spiritual form in the afterlife. The concept of the afterlife in ancient Egypt involved the separation of the body and the soul. According to their beliefs, after death, the body would be mummified and preserved, while the soul, known as Ka, would continue its journey in the afterlife. The soul was thought to be immortal and would reunite with the body in the afterlife, but not in the same physical form as in their earthly life. In the field of reeds, the souls were believed to exist in a state of spiritual bliss, where they would be reunited with their loved ones and experience eternal joy and happiness. This reunion was seen as a meeting of spirits rather than physical bodies. The ancient Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a realm where the souls could continue their existence in a purified and perfected form, free from the limitations and decay of the physical body. The reunions in the field of reeds were seen as a spiritual connection, where the souls could communicate, share emotions, and maintain their relationships without the constraints of the physical world. Overall, the reunions in the afterlife were believed to involve the souls in their spiritual form, rather than the same physical bodies they had in their earthly lives.
I want to know, did they recognize each other, especially the ancestors?
Yes, in the ancient Egyptian belief system, it was believed that the souls in the afterlife would recognize and be reunited with their loved ones, including their ancestors. The concept of recognizing each other in the afterlife was an important aspect of their beliefs. According to their beliefs, the soul, known as Ba, would retain the memories, personality, and identity of the individual. It was believed that the Ba would continue to exist in the afterlife and maintain its recognition of family members, friends, and ancestors. The reunions in the afterlife were seen as opportunities for the souls to connect and maintain their relationships. The ancient Egyptians believed that the souls would recognize each other through their shared experiences, memories, and emotional connections. Furthermore, the ancient Egyptians practiced ancestor worship, where they honored and respected their ancestors. It was believed that the ancestors played a significant role in the lives of the living and could offer guidance and protection. Therefore, recognizing and being reunited with ancestors in the afterlife was an important aspect of their belief system. Overall, the ancient Egyptians believed that the souls in the afterlife would recognize and be reunited with their loved ones, including their ancestors, based on their shared memories, experiences, and emotional bonds.
Did the did they remember their earthly life?
Yes, in ancient Egyptian belief, it was believed that the souls in the afterlife would remember their earthly life. The concept of retaining memories and experiences from their time on Earth was an important aspect of their beliefs about the afterlife. According to their belief system, the soul consisted of different elements, one of which was called Ka. The Ka was believed to be the life force or spiritual essence of an individual, and it was thought to continue existing in the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Ka would retain the memories, knowledge, and experiences acquired during the person's earthly life. Additionally, the ancient Egyptians believed in the judgment of the soul after death. According to their beliefs, the soul would undergo a series of trials and judgments in the afterlife, known as the weighing of the heart. During this process, the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was found to be pure and free of wrongdoing, the soul would be granted eternal life and would continue to remember their earthly life. The concept of remembering earthly life was significant because it allowed the soul to maintain a sense of identity and continuity in the afterlife. It was believed that the memories and experiences from their time on Earth would shape their existence in the afterlife and contribute to their overall spiritual journey. Therefore, according to ancient Egyptian beliefs, the souls in the afterlife were believed to remember their earthly life, with their memories and experiences playing a crucial role in their spiritual journey and existence in the afterlife.
Let's see what the spiritual form was like in the afterlife.
In ancient Egyptian belief, the spiritual form in the afterlife was thought to be different from the physical body that existed during earthly life. The ancient Egyptians believed that after death, the soul would separate from the physical body and continue to exist in a spiritual form. The spiritual form in the afterlife was often depicted as a combination of human and animal characteristics. This form was known as the Ba, which was one of the elements of the soul in ancient Egyptian theology. The Ba was believed to be a bird-like creature with a human head, representing the unique identity and personality of the individual. The Ba was thought to have the ability to travel freely between the earthly realm and the afterlife. It could visit the tomb or burial site of the deceased and also travel to the realm of the gods. The Ba was considered to be the aspect of the soul that maintained a connection with the physical world and the living. Another important aspect of the spiritual form in the afterlife was the Ka. The Ka was believed to be the life force or spiritual essence of an individual. It was often depicted as a pair of upraised arms, symbolizing the vital energy that sustained the soul. The Ka was thought to continue existing in the afterlife and played a role in maintaining the individual's identity and well-being. Additionally, the ancient Egyptians believed in the concept of the AKH, which referred to the transformed and glorified spiritual form of the deceased. The AKH was considered to be a perfected version of the individual's soul, achieved through the trials and judgments of the afterlife. It was depicted as a radiant and ethereal being, often shown with wings and a crown. Overall, the spiritual form in the afterlife, consisting of the Ba, Ka, and AKH, represented the continuing existence and identity of the individual beyond death. It was a form that allowed the soul to navigate between realms, maintain a connection with the physical world, and ultimately achieve a higher state of spiritual transformation.
Let's learn a little bit more about the Ba and the Ka.
The Ba and Ka are two important concepts in ancient Egyptian belief regarding the spiritual form in the afterlife. The Ba is often depicted as a bird with a human head, representing the unique personality and identity of an individual. It was believed to be the aspect of the soul that could freely travel between the earthly realm and the afterlife. The Ba would visit the tomb or burial site of the deceased, as well as travel to the realm of the gods. It was thought to be the part of the soul that maintained a connection with the physical world and the living. The Ka, on the other hand, was considered to be the life force or spiritual essence of an individual. It was often depicted as a pair of upraised arms, symbolizing the vital energy that sustained the soul. The Ka was believed to continue existing in the afterlife and played a role in maintaining the individual's identity and well-being. It was associated with the physical body and its needs, such as food and drink. Offerings and rituals were performed to ensure the nourishment and satisfaction of the Ka in the afterlife. Both the Ba and Ka were believed to be integral parts of the soul that continued to exist after death. While the Ba represented the individual's unique attributes and connection to the physical world, the Ka represented the life force and sustenance of the soul. Together, they contributed to the ongoing existence and well-being of the individual in the afterlife. It is important to note that these concepts may vary slightly depending on different periods and regions within ancient Egypt. The beliefs surrounding the Ba and Ka evolved over time, but they remain central to the understanding of the spiritual form in the afterlife.
Let's learn some more about the Ba and the Ka.
Certainly. Here are some additional details about the Ba and Ka in ancient Egyptian belief. 1. Ba. The Ba was often depicted as a bird with a human head, but it could also be represented as a human-headed falcon or as a human figure with wings. It was believed that the Ba would leave the body after death and embark on a journey to the afterlife. The Ba was thought to be able to travel freely and visit places it had known in life, including the tomb or burial site of the deceased. It was believed that the Ba would also have the ability to travel to the realm of the gods and interact with them. The Ba was considered to be the aspect of the soul that maintained a connection with the physical world and the living, allowing it to receive offerings and participate in rituals performed by loved ones. 2. Ka. The Ka was often depicted as a pair of upraised arms, symbolizing the vital energy that sustains life. It was believed that the Ka was created at the moment of birth and remained with the individual throughout their life and into the afterlife. The Ka was associated with the physical body and its needs. It was believed that the Ka required nourishment, such as food and drink, even in the afterlife. Offerings and rituals were performed by the living to ensure the well-being and satisfaction of the Ka in the afterlife. The Ka was also believed to play a role in maintaining the individual's identity and personality in the afterlife. 3. Relationship between the Ba and Ka. The Ba and Ka were seen as complementary aspects of the soul. While the Ba represented the individual's unique attributes and connection to the physical world, the Ka represented the life force and sustenance of the soul. Together, the Ba and Ka contributed to the ongoing existence and well-being of the individual in the afterlife. The Ba and Ka were believed to reunite in the afterlife and continue their existence together, ensuring the continued identity and vitality of the individual. These concepts of the Ba and Ka were central to ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife and the journey of the soul. They provided a framework for understanding the spiritual form and the continued existence of the individual beyond death. Certainly. Here are some more details about the Ba and Ka in ancient Egyptian belief. 1. Ba. The Ba was considered to be the individual's unique personality and characteristics. It was believed to be an aspect of the soul that could separate from the body after death and continue to exist independently. The Ba was often depicted as a bird with a human head, symbolizing its ability to fly and travel freely. It was believed to have the power to visit places it had known in life, such as the home or workplace. The Ba was also associated with the ability to communicate with the living through dreams and visions. It was believed that the Ba could provide guidance and protection to loved ones. The Ba was thought to be closely connected with the realm of the gods. It was believed to have the ability to ascend to the heavens and interact with the divine beings. 2. Ka. The Ka was considered to be the life force or vital energy that animated the body. It was believed to be created at the moment of birth and to remain with the individual throughout their life and beyond. The Ka was often depicted as a pair of upraised arms, symbolizing its role in sustaining life. It was believed to require nourishment, such as food and drink, even in the afterlife. The Ka was closely associated with the physical body and its needs. It was believed that if the body decayed or was destroyed, the Ka would cease to exist. Offerings and rituals were performed by the living to ensure the well-being and satisfaction of the Ka in the afterlife. These offerings included food, drink, and other items that the Ka would need to sustain itself. 3. Relationship between the Ba and Ka. The Ba and Ka were seen as two distinct aspects of the soul, each with its own functions and characteristics. The Ba represented the individual's unique personality and connection to the divine, while the Ka represented the life force and sustenance. In the afterlife, it was believed that the Ba and Ka would reunite and continue to exist together. The Ba would provide the individual's identity and ability to interact with the spiritual realm, while the Ka would provide the life force necessary for their continued existence. The Ba and Ka were believed to be essential for the individual's journey through the afterlife. Without the Ba, the individual would lose their unique identity, and without the Ka, they would lack the vital energy needed to sustain their existence. These concepts of the Ba and Ka played a crucial role in ancient Egyptian beliefs about the soul in the afterlife. They provided a framework for understanding the nature of the individual's spiritual existence and their connection to the divine realm.
I hope and pray God gives our ancestors sustenance for the Ka, as that information was taken from our ancestors. They didn't pass that knowledge down to us, so we haven't been doing that. We haven't been providing sustenance for our ancestors' Kas, so, because they stole that information from us. Anyway, moving right along.
When the Ba, an aspect of the soul in ancient Egyptian belief, visited earthly places, it was believed to have the ability to interact with the living in the physical world. Here are some aspects of what was believed to happen when the Ba visited earthly places. 1. Communication with loved ones. The Ba was thought to have the power to communicate with the living through dreams and visions. It could provide guidance, protection, and even warnings to loved ones. The Ba could appear in dreams or visions to offer advice or comfort. 2. Revisiting familiar places. The Ba was believed to have the ability to visit places it had known in life, such as the individual's home, workplace, or favorite locations. This allowed the Ba to maintain a connection with the physical world and experience familiar surroundings. 3. Observing rituals and offerings. The Ba was believed to be present during rituals and offerings performed by the living for the deceased. This included funerary rituals, where offerings of food, drink, and other items were made to sustain the Ba in the afterlife. The Ba could witness and benefit from these offerings. 4. Providing guidance and protection. The Ba was considered to be a source of guidance and protection for the living. It was believed that the Ba had knowledge and wisdom acquired during the individual's lifetime, and it could share this wisdom to help guide loved ones on the right path. 5. Reuniting with ancestors. The Ba could also visit the tombs and burial places of ancestors. It was believed that the Ba could reunite with the Ba of deceased family members, allowing for continued connection and support between generations. It's important to note that these beliefs were based on ancient Egyptian mythology and religious practices. The Ba's visits to earthly places were seen as part of the spiritual journey and interaction between the living and the deceased.
Yeah, they keep referring to the Kemetic as mythology, like it was a fairy tale or some shit. Anyway, let's hear some more about the spiritual beings.
Certainly. Here are some additional details about the beliefs surrounding the Ba's visits to earthly places in ancient Egyptian culture. 1. Traveling through the afterlife. The Ba was thought to have the ability to travel through the various realms of the afterlife, including the Field of Reeds, a paradise-like realm, and the Duat, the realm of the dead. It could navigate these realms to visit loved ones and interact with other deceased souls. 2. Connection with the Ka. The Ba was closely associated with the Ka, another aspect of the soul in ancient Egyptian belief. The Ka was believed to reside within the body and needed to be sustained in the afterlife. The Ba had the role of ensuring the Ka's well-being and could visit the earthly places associated with the individual's Ka, such as their tomb or memorial. 3. Participating in festivals and ceremonies. The Ba was believed to join in the festivities and ceremonies held in honor of the deceased. These events, such as the opening of the mouth ceremony, were performed to ensure the Ba's continued existence and well-being in the afterlife. The Ba was thought to be present during these rituals and could partake in the offerings and rituals performed by the living. 4. Receiving offerings and sustenance. The Ba was dependent on offerings made by the living for its sustenance in the afterlife. These offerings included food, drink, and other goods that were placed in the tomb or at the individual's memorial. The Ba was believed to consume the essence of these offerings, providing nourishment and support in the afterlife. 5. Maintaining a spiritual presence. The Ba was considered to be a spiritual presence that could be felt by the living. It was believed that the Ba could manifest itself in various forms, such as a bird or a human-like figure, and could be sensed or perceived by those who were attuned to the spiritual realm. These beliefs reflect the ancient Egyptian view of the afterlife and the ongoing connection between the living and the deceased. The Ba's visits to earthly places were seen as a way to maintain this connection and ensure the well-being of both the Ba and the living.
How did the Ba communicate with the living?
According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, the Ba communicated with the living through various means. Here are some of the ways in which the Ba was thought to establish communication. 1. Dream visitations. One of the most common ways for the Ba to communicate with the living was through dreams. It was believed that during sleep, the Ba could enter the dreams of the living and deliver messages or guidance. These dream visitations were considered significant and often interpreted as divine communication. 2. Mediums and oracles. In some cases, individuals known as mediums or oracles would act as intermediaries between the Ba and the living. These individuals would enter a trance-like state and allow the Ba to speak through them. The Ba would convey messages, answer questions, or provide guidance to those seeking communication. 3. Divination and augury. The ancient Egyptians practiced various forms of divination and augury to seek communication from the Ba. This included methods such as scrying, gazing into a reflective surface, interpreting omens from natural phenomena, or consulting oracles for guidance and messages from the Ba. 4. Rituals and offerings. The living would often perform rituals and offer prayers, food, and other offerings to the Ba in order to establish communication. These rituals were believed to attract the Ba's attention and create a connection between the living and the deceased. The Ba would then respond through signs, dreams, or other forms of communication. 5. Spiritual sensitivity. Some individuals were believed to have a heightened sensitivity to the spiritual realm and could perceive the presence of the Ba without any specific communication methods. These individuals, known as sensitives or seers, could sense the Ba's energy, receive messages, or communicate directly with the Ba through their heightened spiritual abilities. It is important to note that these beliefs and practices were specific to ancient Egyptian culture and may not align with modern beliefs or understandings of communication with the deceased.
Let's elaborate on that.
Certainly. Here are some additional details about how the Ba communicated with the living in ancient Egyptian culture. 1. Rituals and offerings. Rituals played a significant role in establishing communication with the Ba. The living would perform ceremonies and offer food, drink, and other items to honor and appease the Ba. These offerings were believed to nourish and sustain the Ba, creating a connection between the living and the deceased. 2. Funerary texts. The ancient Egyptians believed that certain funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, contained spells and instructions that would guide the Ba in the afterlife and enable communication with the living. These texts were often inscribed on tomb walls or included in burial chambers to assist the Ba in its journey and provide guidance for communication. 3. Statues and images. The Ba was sometimes represented by statues or images placed in tombs or temples. These representations served as focal points for communication, allowing the Ba to manifest its presence and interact with the living. Individuals would offer prayers and make requests to the Ba through these statues or images. 4. Oracle temples. Temples dedicated to specific gods or goddesses were considered places where communication with the Ba could occur. These temples housed oracles who would enter a trance-like state and receive messages from the Ba. People seeking communication would visit these temples and consult the oracles for guidance or messages from their deceased loved ones. 5. Personal connection. The ancient Egyptians believed in maintaining a personal connection with the Ba of their deceased loved ones. They would often visit tombs, leave offerings, and engage in conversations with the Ba, sharing news, seeking advice, or simply expressing their love and devotion. This personal connection was believed to facilitate ongoing communication between the living and the Ba. It's important to note that these practices were specific to ancient Egyptian beliefs and may differ from other cultures' beliefs and practices regarding communication with the deceased.
More?
Certainly. Here are some additional interesting facts about ancient Egyptian culture. 1. Hieroglyphic writing.
I want to know more about the Ba and the communication with the living.
In ancient Egyptian belief, the Ba was considered one of the essential components of a person's soul. The Ba was believed to be an individual's unique personality and character. It was often depicted as a bird with a human head and was believed to be able to move freely between the realms of the living and the dead. Communication with the Ba was an important aspect of ancient Egyptian religious practices and rituals. The Ba was thought to continue to exist after death and could return to visit the living during specific ceremonies and rituals. Here are a few key points about communication with the Ba. 1. Offering rituals. The living would make offerings to the Ba of their deceased loved ones to maintain a connection and provide sustenance in the afterlife. Offerings could include food, drink, and personal belongings that the deceased enjoyed during their lifetime. 2. Ancestral shrines. Families often had ancestral shrines in their homes where they would place images or statues representing the Ba of their deceased ancestors. These shrines served as a focal point for communication and remembrance. 3. Festivals and celebrations. The ancient Egyptians held festivals and celebrations dedicated to honoring their deceased ancestors. During these events, offerings and prayers were made to the Ba, and rituals were performed to ensure the continued well-being and happiness of the deceased. 4. Tomb decoration. Tombs were often decorated with scenes and inscriptions that depicted the deceased interacting with their Ba. These decorations were meant to facilitate communication between the Ba and the living, as well as to provide guidance and support for the Ba's journey in the afterlife. 5. Ritual texts. The ancient Egyptians had specific ritual texts, such as the Book of the Dead, that were recited during funerary rituals and ceremonies. These texts contained instructions and spells believed to guide the Ba through the afterlife and ensure a successful transition to the realm of the dead. The ancient Egyptians believed that maintaining a connection with the Ba of the deceased was essential for the well-being of both the living and the dead. Through offerings, rituals, and ceremonies, they sought to establish a link between the realms of the living and the afterlife, allowing for ongoing communication and support.
I want to know more about Osiris. He was the god, I believe, that judged people based on their heart, the weighing of the heart and the feather in the afterlife. I'm not sure.
Osiris is one of the most important and revered gods in ancient Egyptian mythology. He was the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility. Here are some key points about Osiris. 1. Role and attributes. Osiris was believed to be the ruler of the underworld and the judge of the dead. He was associated with the Nile River, which was vital for the fertility and prosperity of Egypt. Osiris was often depicted as a mummified figure wearing the Atef crown, a symbol of kingship, and holding a crook and flail. 2. Mythology. According to the myth, Osiris was the son of the sky goddess Nut and the earth god Geb. He was married to his sister, Isis, and they had a son named Horus. Osiris's brother, Set, was jealous of his power and plotted to kill him. Set tricked Osiris into entering a coffin, which he sealed and threw into the Nile. Isis found the coffin and brought it back to Egypt, but Set discovered it again and dismembered Osiris's body. Isis, with the help of other gods, reassembled Osiris's body and resurrected him long enough for her to conceive their son, Horus. 3. Symbolism. Osiris became a symbol of resurrection and eternal life. His death and subsequent resurrection were seen as a metaphor for the cycle of death and rebirth that occurred in nature in the afterlife. Osiris was often depicted as a green-skinned god, representing rebirth and the regenerative power of the Nile's floodwaters. 4. Cult and worship. Osiris was worshipped throughout ancient Egypt and had numerous temples dedicated to him. The most famous temple was located in Abydos, where Osiris was believed to be buried. The annual festival of Osiris, called the Feast of Osiris, or Osiris Mysteries, was a significant event in ancient Egyptian religious calendar. It involved processions, rituals, and reenactments of the myth of Osiris's death and resurrection. 5. Judgment of the dead. As the judge of the dead, Osiris presided over the weighing of the heart ceremony after a person's death. In this ceremony, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the person would be deemed worthy and allowed to enter the afterlife. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by a monster and the person would face eternal punishment. Osiris played a central role in ancient Egyptian religious beliefs and rituals, offering hope for eternal life and serving as a symbol of resurrection and regeneration. His cult and mythology were deeply ingrained in Egyptian society, and his influence extended to various aspects of Egyptian culture, including art, architecture, and religious practices.
How did the Kemetic artifacts end up in Europe?
The presence of Kemetic ancient Egyptian artifacts in Europe can be attributed to several factors. 1. Ancient trade routes. Ancient Egypt had extensive trade networks that reached as far as the Mediterranean, the Near East, and Nubia. Through these trade routes, Egyptian artifacts could have been exchanged and transported to different regions, including Europe. 2. Conquest and colonization. Throughout history, various European powers, such as the Greeks, Romans, and later the Napoleonic French, had military campaigns and conquests in Egypt. These conquests often resulted in the looting and plundering of Egyptian temples, tombs, and archaeological sites. Many of the artifacts taken during these periods found their way to Europe as spoils of war or as a result of colonization. 3. Excavations and expeditions. European explorers, archaeologists, and scholars have been fascinated by ancient Egypt for centuries. They conducted excavations and expeditions in Egypt, uncovering and acquiring numerous artifacts. These artifacts were often shipped back to Europe for further study, display in museums, or private collections. 4. Museum collections. The establishment of museums in Europe, especially during the 19th and early 20th centuries, provided a platform for the display and preservation of ancient artifacts. Many Kemetic artifacts were acquired by museums through purchases, donations, and archaeological expeditions. 5. Private collectors and art market. Wealthy individuals, collectors, and art dealers in Europe have long been interested in acquiring ancient Egyptian artifacts. These artifacts have been bought and sold through the art market, private collections, and auctions over the years. It is important to note that the acquisition and display of Kemetic artifacts in Europe have been a subject of debate and controversy. Many argue for the repatriation of these artifacts to their country of origin, advocating for the preservation of cultural heritage and restitution to the source countries. Efforts have been made to address these concerns, with some artifacts being returned to Egypt or displayed in collaboration with Egyptian institutions. In ancient Egyptian belief, the Ba was considered one aspect of the human soul. It was thought to be the unique individuality and personality of a person. Communicating with the Ba was an important aspect of Egyptian religious rituals and practices. Here are some key points about these rituals. 1. Purpose. The main purpose of communicating with the Ba was to maintain a connection between the living and the deceased. The Ba was believed to continue existing after death and required offerings and rituals to sustain its well-being. 2. Offerings. Offerings played a crucial role in communicating with the Ba. The living would provide food, drink, and other material goods as offerings to nourish the Ba and ensure its happiness in the afterlife. These offerings were often placed in tombs or at designated sacred places. 3. Rituals and prayers. Rituals and prayers were performed to establish a connection with the Ba. These rituals included recitations, hymns, and invocations to invoke the presence of the Ba. Priests or family members would perform these rituals on behalf of the deceased, seeking to communicate their messages and needs to the Ba. 4. Funerary scenes and objects. Funerary scenes and objects depicted in tombs and on funerary goods played a significant role in communicating with the Ba. These scenes depicted the deceased engaging in activities they enjoyed during their lifetime, such as hunting, fishing, or feasting. It was believed that these representations would provide the Ba with a source of pleasure and sustenance. 5. Mortuary offerings. In addition to the regular offerings, specific mortuary offerings were made to honor the Ba. These offerings included the opening of the mouth ceremony, where the deceased's mouth was ritually opened to allow the Ba to receive nourishment, and the giving of breath ceremony, where a priest would breathe life into a statue or representation of the deceased, symbolically revitalizing the Ba. 6. Commemorative rituals. The ancient Egyptians also practiced commemorative rituals to honor and remember the deceased. These rituals, performed on specific occasions such as anniversaries or religious festivals, involved offerings, prayers, and the recitation of the deceased's name to ensure the continued presence and well-being of the Ba. It is important to note that the rituals and beliefs surrounding communication with the Ba evolved over time and varied across different periods of ancient Egyptian history. The complexity and specific details of these rituals also depended on the social status of the individual.
Let's talk about how the conquest occurred. Let's break that down. Let's break down how Europe.
The conquests throughout history have varied in their nature and methods depending on the time period, region, and the specific actors involved. Here, I will provide a general overview of conquests and their typical characteristics, although it is important to note that each conquest is unique and can have different dynamics. 1. Motives for conquest. Conquests are often driven by a variety of motives, including territorial expansion, control of resources, economic gain, ideological or religious reasons, political power, and sometimes even revenge or prestige. These motives can differ depending on the civilization and historical context. 2. Planning and preparation. Conquests typically involve careful planning and preparation. This may include gathering intelligence on the target, assessing military strengths and weaknesses, logistical planning, and diplomatic maneuvering to gain alliances or weaken potential opponents. 3. Mobilization and recruitment. Before launching a conquest, the conqueror must mobilize and recruit a suitable army or force. This may involve conscripting soldiers, hiring mercenaries, or rallying volunteers. Training, equipping, and organizing the troops are also vital components of the preparation process. 4. Military strategies and tactics. Conquests often involve the use of military strategies and tactics to achieve victory. These strategies can include siege warfare, guerrilla tactics, naval operations, ambushes, flanking maneuvers, and frontal assaults. The specific strategies employed depend on factors such as the terrain, the capabilities of the opposing forces, and the objectives of the conqueror. 5. Battles and sieges. Conquests are frequently marked by battles and sieges. Battles occur when opposing forces engage in direct combat, while sieges involve surrounding and besieging a fortified location or city to force its surrender. These events can be intense and violent, resulting in casualties on both sides. 6. Diplomacy and negotiation. In some cases, conquests may involve diplomacy and negotiation. Conquerors may seek to establish alliances, offer favorable terms of surrender, or negotiate treaties with local rulers or populations. Diplomatic efforts can help secure the conquered territory and facilitate a smoother transition of power. 7. Occupation and administration. After a successful conquest, the conqueror must establish control over the newly acquired territory. This involves the occupation and administration of the conquered lands, which can include the establishment of military garrisons, the appointment of local officials, the implementation of new laws and regulations, and the imposition of the conqueror's culture or religion. 8. Resistance and rebellions. Conquests are often met with resistance and rebellions from the conquered population. The conquered people may resist the conqueror's rule due to a desire for independence, preservation of their culture, or grievances stemming from the conquest itself. Suppressing and managing these rebellions becomes a significant challenge for the conqueror. 9. Legacy and impact. Conquests have far-reaching consequences that can shape the course of history. They can lead to cultural assimilation, the spread of ideas and technologies, the establishment of new political systems, and the redrawing of borders. The impact of a conquest can be felt for generations, shaping the social, political, and economic landscape of the conquered territories. It is essential to recognize that conquests have occurred throughout human history, and each conquest has its own unique details and circumstances. The above overview provides a general framework, but the specific details of conquests can vary significantly depending on the historical context being examined.
How did the Europeans originally obtain the Kemetic artifacts? Let's get specific.
Kemetic artifacts, referring to artifacts from ancient Egypt, were obtained through various means over the course of ancient Egyptian history. Here are some of the ways these artifacts were originally obtained. 1. Royal patronage. Many Kemetic artifacts were commissioned and obtained through the patronage of Egyptian pharaohs and members of the royal family. The pharaohs often sponsored the creation of elaborate tombs, temples, and monuments, which housed valuable artifacts such as statues, reliefs, jewelry, and ceremonial objects. 2. Religious and funerary practices. Ancient Egyptians placed great importance on religious and funerary practices, believing in an afterlife and the preservation of the deceased's body and possessions. Artifacts were created and used for religious rituals, funerary rites, and as offerings to the gods, which were then placed in tombs, temples, and burial sites. 3. Trade and exchange. The ancient Egyptians engaged in trade and exchange with neighboring regions, such as Nubia, the Levant, and the Mediterranean civilizations. Through these trade networks, they acquired exotic materials, luxury goods, and artistic influences. This resulted in the exchange of artifacts and cultural ideas. 4. Conquests and tribute. The ancient Egyptians also obtained artifacts through conquests and the collection of tribute from conquered territories. Military campaigns led to the acquisition of wealth, including valuable artifacts, which were often displayed as symbols of power and control. 5. Archaeological excavations. Many Kemetic artifacts have been discovered through archaeological excavations and explorations conducted by scholars and archaeologists. These artifacts were often buried or hidden over time and were rediscovered through systematic archaeological research. 6. Tomb robbery and looting. Unfortunately, tomb robbery and looting have occurred throughout history, including in ancient Egypt. Some artifacts were obtained through illegal means, as tomb robbers sought to profit from the valuable objects buried with the deceased. This practice continues to be a significant issue even today. 7. Collecting and museum acquisitions. In more recent times, Kemetic artifacts have been obtained through collecting activities and museum acquisitions. Archaeologists, explorers, collectors, and institutions have acquired artifacts through legal means, such as excavations, purchases, donations, and exchanges. It is important to note that the acquisition of Kemetic artifacts has evolved over time, and the methods used in ancient times may differ from those employed in modern times. Additionally, circumstances surrounding the acquisition of certain artifacts may be a subject of debate and controversy due to the historical context and ethical considerations.
We'll get back to that. Let's learn some more about the rituals of Kemetic communication with the Ba. But we're going to get back to how their artifacts ended up in Europe.
The Kemetic civilization had complex beliefs about the afterlife and the communication with the deceased. One aspect of this communication was through the Ba, which was believed to be the soul or spirit of an individual. Here are some key points about the rituals of Kemetic communication with the Ba. 1. Offering rituals. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Ba of the deceased required sustenance and offerings in the afterlife. Therefore, regular rituals were performed to provide food, drink, and other offerings to nourish and satisfy the Ba. These offerings were placed in tombs or dedicated temples, and priests or family members would perform the rituals. 2. Opening of the mouth ceremony. The opening of the mouth ceremony was a significant ritual performed on the mummy or statue of the deceased. It involved symbolic gestures, prayers, and the use of specific tools to symbolically restore the senses and faculties of the deceased, allowing them to receive offerings and participate in the afterlife. 3. Funerary offerings. Funerary offerings played a crucial role in Kemetic rituals. These offerings included food, drink, clothing, jewelry, and other items believed to be needed by the deceased in the afterlife. The offerings were often depicted in tomb paintings and inscriptions, and the rituals for offering them were performed regularly. 4. Mortuary temples. Mortuary temples were dedicated to the worship and communication with the deceased pharaohs and other prominent individuals. These temples were places of ritualistic offerings and ceremonies conducted by priests and attendants. They served as a connection between the living and the deceased, allowing communication with the Ba. 5. Offering chapels. Offering chapels were small structures or rooms within tombs that were dedicated to the Ba of the deceased. These chapels contained offering tables, statues, and inscriptions. Family members and priests would visit these chapels to perform rituals and leave offerings for the Ba. 6. Ritual texts and spells. The ancient Egyptians believed in the power of ritual texts and spells to aid in communication with the Ba. These texts, such as the Book of the Dead, contained instructions, prayers, and magical spells that were recited during rituals to ensure the well-being and guidance of the Ba in the afterlife. 7. Ancestor worship. Ancestor worship was an important aspect of Kemetic culture. It involved the veneration and communication with the Ba of deceased family members. Family members would visit tombs, perform rituals, and offer prayers to maintain a connection with their ancestors and seek their guidance and protection. These rituals of Kemetic communication with the Ba were deeply rooted in the belief that the deceased continued to exist in the afterlife and required sustenance, offerings, and communication from the living. They played a significant role in maintaining the spiritual connection between the living and the deceased in Kemetic society.
What strategies were used to conquer ancient Egypt and Kemetic culture? Gotta get specific.
Throughout ancient history, various strategies were employed by different civilizations in their attempts to conquer ancient Egypt and the Kemetic culture. Here are some of the strategies that were used. 1. Military conquest. Many conquerors attempted to invade and conquer ancient Egypt through military force. These conquests often involved large armies, siege tactics, and battles. The invaders aimed to overcome the Egyptian military defenses and gain control over strategic locations, such as key cities or trade routes. 2. Diplomacy and alliances. Some conquerors sought to establish diplomatic relations and form alliances with Egypt. They would send envoys, negotiate treaties, and exchange gifts with the Egyptian pharaohs. By forging alliances or securing peaceful agreements, they aimed to gain influence and control over Egypt without resorting to direct military conflict. 3. Economic dominance. Conquerors recognized the economic importance of Egypt, particularly its agricultural productivity and access to the Nile River. They would exploit Egypt's resources, establish trade routes, and control key trade centers to exert economic dominance. This strategy aimed to weaken Egypt's independence and make it reliant on the conqueror's economic power. 4. Political intrigue and internal conflicts. Taking advantage of internal divisions and political instability within Egypt, some conquerors would support rival factions or incite rebellions. By fueling internal conflicts, they aimed to weaken Egypt from within and create opportunities for external control or intervention.
Divide and
5.
conquer.
Cultural assimilation.
Yes.
In some cases, conquerors would attempt to assimilate the Kemetic culture into their own. They would adopt Egyptian religious practices, art, architecture, and other cultural elements, while imposing their own ruling elite. This strategy aimed to control Egypt by blending the conqueror's culture with the existing Kemetic culture. 6. Propaganda and ideological influence. Conquerors recognized the importance of influencing the beliefs, values, and narratives of the Egyptian population. They would use propaganda, ideological influence, and religious manipulation to gain the support or compliance of the Egyptian people. This strategy aimed to weaken the cultural and national identity of Egypt, making it more receptive to foreign rule. It is important to note that despite numerous attempts, Egypt managed to withstand many conquests and maintained its independence for much of its ancient history. The Kemetic culture and civilization were resilient, adapting to external influences while preserving their unique identity.
Okay. Let's see what happened. What items were taken from ancient Egypt during their conquest? What did they steal? What did the Europeans steal?
During the conquests of ancient Egypt, conquerors often sought to plunder the wealth and treasures of the Egyptian civilization. Some of the items that were taken from ancient Egypt during these conquests include 1. Precious metals and gemstones. Gold, silver, copper, and other precious metals were highly valued and sought after by conquerors. These metals were extracted from Egyptian mines or acquired through trade. Gemstones such as lapis lazuli, turquoise, carnelian, and amethyst were also coveted. 2. Art and sculptures. The ancient Egyptians were known for their exquisite art and sculptures. Conquerors would often seize statues, reliefs, and other artistic masterpieces made of stone, wood, or metal. These items were considered valuable not only for their artistic beauty but also for their historical and cultural significance. 3. Jewelry and personal ornaments. The Egyptians were skilled in jewelry making, and their adornments were highly prized. Conquerors would confiscate gold and silver jewelry, amulets, bracelets, necklaces, rings, and other personal ornaments. 4. Religious and ritual objects. Egypt was a land of temples and religious practices. Conquerors would take religious artifacts, ritual objects, statues of gods and goddesses, and sacred vessels used in ceremonies. These items held religious significance and were often made of precious materials. 5. Papyrus scrolls and written documents. The ancient Egyptians were pioneers in writing and record keeping. Conquerors would seize papyrus scrolls, manuscripts, and other written documents that contained valuable information about Egyptian history, culture, religion, and administrative records. 6. Luxury goods and exotic materials. Egypt was a hub for trade, and luxury goods from different regions would pass through its borders. Conquerors would plunder exotic materials such as ebony, ivory, incense, spices, and rare woods. It is worth noting that while conquerors took these items, many artifacts and treasures from ancient Egypt have survived and can be found in museums and collections around the world today. These artifacts provide valuable insights into the rich history and culture of the ancient Egyptian civilization.
What else did the conquerors take?
In addition to the items mentioned earlier, conquerors who sought to plunder ancient Egypt often obtained 1. Slaves. Conquerors would capture and enslave the Egyptian population, using them for labor or selling them as slaves in other regions. Slavery was a common practice during ancient times, and the conquerors saw the enslaved population as a valuable resource. 2. Agricultural resources. Egypt was known as the breadbasket of the ancient world, due to its fertile land and agricultural productivity. Conquerors would seize agricultural resources such as grain, fruits, and vegetables to sustain their own armies and populations. 3. Livestock. Egypt had a rich variety of domesticated animals, including cattle, sheep, goats, and horses. Conquerors would take these animals to use for food, transportation, or as valuable assets. 4. Architectural and engineering knowledge. The ancient Egyptians were renowned for their architectural and engineering achievements, such as the construction of pyramids, temples, and irrigation systems. Conquerors would often employ Egyptian architects, engineers, and craftsmen to replicate these architectural marvels in their own territories. 5. Intellectual and scientific knowledge. Ancient Egypt was a center of knowledge and innovation in various fields like mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering. Conquerors would acquire Egyptian texts, scrolls, and manuscripts to gain access to this intellectual and scientific knowledge. 6. Tribute and taxes. Conquerors imposed tribute and taxes on the Egyptian population to extract wealth and resources from the conquered territories. This could include monetary payments, agricultural produce, or other valuable goods. It is important to note that the conquest and plunder of ancient Egypt led to the loss of irreplaceable cultural and historical artifacts. However, it also resulted in the exchange of ideas, technologies, and goods between ancient Egypt and the conquerors' civilizations, contributing to the development of human civilization as a whole.
Let's see, what were the different ways in which the conquerors